Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Backstage Pass. I'm your host, Vince Edwards. You may know me from Sound Image Productions. I've got a couple closed Facebook groups that I administer for roadies. One's called Death by Loadout. The other one is called The Backstage Pass. Come check us out. This show is actually kind of a companion piece to The Backstage Pass, a little something extra for our friends and having our buddies over. To my right, I've got my good friend, my Robin to my Batman action, Kyle Thomas. How you doing, brother?
Not too bad, big dog. How about yourself?
Oh man, just happy, just good, really good.
Nothing else for us.
Shout out to the love of my life. It puts a spring in my step. I love you, baby. And tell us what's new with you. I know that you've been up to a lot of stuff, and I'd love for you to share with us.
I have. I've just been busy, trying to stay busy.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so everything that I'm trying to do now is focused around positive growth in these slow times of just like maximizing my knowledge base in any way possible. So like in unexpected ways recently, more the camera end, developing this whole video system at our shop and everything with the people here and our infrastructure getting a little bit stronger.
I've seen you've been putting quite a few hours in on that.
Yeah, and it's great for us all to come together and really form a team that's actually developing a bigger idea, and a bigger perspective that I think could aid in a lot of ways.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's super, very productive and important, and it's nice not having all the tools in one basket.
Yeah, and it's great to work for a company that has so many different speaker manufacturers as well. It's like you can focus on anything, really, any of these manufacturers, and most of them we have right in our shop.
Yeah, we are very fortunate.
So it's like, the past couple of months has been mostly all acoustic stuff. Now I could say, you go check out a D&B webinar now or something. They have a huge list. You can sign up for them. Go check them out. They're starting to transition away.
That's happening right now.
They have one tomorrow. They have on July 28th, I think, is the one I'm going to look into, which is the line array theory one. I'm more interested in.
That should be very interesting.
Yeah, and then away from that, like when I'm driving around or just have some time off, I'm just listening to stuff. I usually just put on an episode of Dave Pensato's Place. Been focused on listening and trying to critique my own ears.
What has he done? About 400 episodes? I mean,
he's probably got more than that.
He's prolific, and what a source of information, and street level. I know you swear by it.
It's just nice to have the conversation, right? It's like if you want to focus and be a utility belt dude and learn more of these skill sets that different engineers have, that's a place and a platform that's offered. So
pretty great.
I find it really helpful.
Very cool. And they can find that standard, Google it, YouTube.
Yep.
Simple as that.
Yeah, I think Mikey threw up a link for us.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Mikey. We, in our never-ending quest to get the best and the brightest, we scored big time.
You sure did.
Yeah.
I've been listening to him for the past, 9 weeks now?
Yes, you've been, 9 weeks he's been teaching our class.
Maybe 10.
Next
I think
guest,
this is our 10th.
Going on our 10th, is it? Teaching our many of our engineers from our different shops over his special lab that he hosts. Has been, got an amazing teacher on the S6L. If audio engineers got the fame they deserved, Robert Scovill would be a household name by now. He has worked mixing such notable artists as Prince, Rush, Def Leppard, Tom Petty, I believe 23 years, Tom Petty. He's come specially just attired. I like that. Thank you, Bob. Always bringing the funny. He also serves as AVID senior specialist for live audio mixing consoles. It's the one, it's the only. It's our great pleasure and honor to welcome Robert Scovill. Robert Scovill, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, buddy. How are you?
Well, I tell you, I feel like there's a kinship with us. We both love the music. We both suffer from bright lights in indoors.
Very brotherly vibe going on
Yeah,
right now.
and
I mean, I tried to grow it between 1:30 today and the show.
I'm jealous. You got like 6-8 inches on my beard.
Those are some long wisdom whiskers.
You
We
know,
were talking earlier about trying to create balance in the visuals, so I just thought I'd try to help you out, man.
you, as
I'm a
ever,
giver.
are of service to us, to the system, to the industry. That's why you're so beloved. You silly. All right. It was a good look, though. You got to admit, he was pulling it off. If you ever just decide to go for it,
You guys were neck and neck. I wouldn't know the difference. Let me tell you.
right? Yeah, it was close. I got to ask you, how have you been doing during this, coronavirus, this extra time off crap?
I'm doing good. I mean, this is a tough time for everybody. I mean, this is something that our industry has never ever experienced anything quite like this. This is not like losing a job and having the ability to go out and get another one. I mean, there are no jobs. I mean, it is dead in the water right now. So, I'm just one of those guys. Curse me for it, don't curse me for it. I'm a lemonade out of lemons guy. I'm always going to find the reason that something is good. And I'm one of these people that believe our industry, actually, if we can survive it, it's a race against time. If we can survive it, our industry is actually going to come out really strong at the end of this. And I think there's an opportunity for guys like you and me and everybody else that does this for a living to expand our skill sets and really hone our skill sets a little bit. I mean, think about this now. Over the past 15 years, the amount of technological transition that's taken place in live sound is breathtaking.
It's incredible.
Compared to what it has happened. Mm-hmm. And everybody has been scrambling to keep up, not only just in their knowledge base, but in, all the technology, et cetera. So now we get a breath.
Yeah.
We get to kind of go, okay, and we got a chance to catch up here, and if we really bear down, and there's so many people trying to share information out there about what's going on. If you take the time now, you can get caught up. And then when the industry comes back online, it's going to be really something special. I truly believe that. If we can make it to the time, if we can get back in online in time, that can happen,
I couldn't agree with you more. You said it perfectly. And I think it's happening. I see a lot of our young associates taking advantage of the different opportunities in webinars and post-education outside of the on-the-job stuff that they're used to kind of by the fire. So, and of course, you have been an incredible resource pretty much since it's been going on and before, again, being Avid's live audio specialist, basically. Do you do a lot of webinars and classes out of the lab there? And can you explain what your lab is or the idea of it?
Well, I mean, I'll before we get into that, I would just say to you, it's one of the. I don't want to sound like I'm wearing an Avid hat here. This is not what I'm trying to promote here, but in 2000, what was it, 2008 maybe? I had been working at Avid, for officially for 2 or 3 years at that point, and had been kind of working behind the scenes with them for a period of years before that. And they brought to me this idea of doing webinars, and we were going to do it to do kind of console training for, at that point, DigiDesign D Show and Profile had just come online. And I had no idea what it was. I mean, the marketing lady that was trying to get me to do them, I was like, you want to do what? I was like, nobody's going to watch that. Are you out of your freaking mind? I mean, these are live sound guys. They're not going to sit down and watch this crap. And a little did I know at the time, I think she was actually using me as a little bit of a guinea pig because I was the very first webinar to ever come out of DigiDesign. I did the very first one of them. And honestly, it was awful. It was just awful. But, you kind of got to get your feet wet and get going, of course. But the response to it from the end users was so positive. I just remember thinking, okay, this is kind of a watershed moment here in live sound. And really what it is highlighting, if we want to see it this way, is the hunger for expertise and education in live sound. There was absolutely an appetite for it, And those were pretty humble beginnings back then. But, doing it in those early days, you learn how to do it. You learn how to kind of hopefully get good at it a little bit. You learn what it takes, etc. And I said this to the CEO of Avid. We were talking when this whole pandemic thing happened and it was starting to shut down. And he was like, well, what are we going to do? And I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get online and we are going to put a blitzkrieg of information out there, not just about Avid, but about live sound. We're going to show that we know what we're talking about when it comes to live sound, and show to the industry that we actually are in this business and care about it. And I said, I'm ready to go right now. I said, I have a system set up here that I use in the sound image classes that was set up primarily for video capture, where I had multiple camera angles, could capture, and then I would come in and edit it all together and broadcast it out as a webinar.
Oh, it's so helpful how you had it laid out.
Yeah, we've seen a few.
Absolutely.
Let's just transition that over into a broadcast thing. Let's make it live broadcast now. So it took me a good long weekend. I kind of struck it all back out and reformed it for broadcast. And I was like, I'm going to go 5 days a week. Let's go. I'm going to go 5 days a week here, and let's get something going here. Now, obviously, only one of those days is actually marketing the console per se. That's on those Wednesday webinars. But the rest is purely about live sound. Like on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do sound company training, which you guys have seen with Sound Image, where I'm in, for an hour, 90 minutes, whatever, 3 weeks out of the month. And we do nothing but talk about live sound mixing, and we do a training on the console when that is all going on. And then Wednesday is the venue-specific one. Monday, which you were alluding to, and I've finally gotten all the way back to here, is this thing I kind of envisioned. I'd been thinking about doing this for a long time, and it was like, necessity is the mother of invention. When the COVID thing happened, I was like, okay, this is the time to do this, which is this thing called The Lab. And it's completely open-ended. I mean, I do a little prep. I will do some subject prep to get things going in there.
They had some
but it's
graphics
completely
and
open-ended.
things.
There's no time limit on it. We'll stick around and talk about a subject for as long as you want to sit around and talk about it. And I'll present it. I'll show real-world examples on the console with the speaker system, whatever. And, that kind of thing doesn't fit nicely into kind of a programmed, produced webinar format.
Sure.
It's not meant to be that. It's meant to be this kind of open forum thing. And the response to that has just been, it's been off the chain. I never would have seen it as big as it has.
Well,
I give you, not to brag on it, but between the Wednesday webinars, the lab, and the Friday thing that I have called the Back Lounge, which we can talk about as well.
Absolutely.
In Q2, between all of those sessions, we've had close to 60,000 views.
Damn.
I never in my wildest dreams would I have
amazing.
ever thought that was going to, we would have pulled in any kind of numbers like that.
Congratulations. No, it does kind of make sense. The people got the time, you got the name and the skills and the offering. It's such it's an embarrassment of riches out there right now. If you're looking to learn, oh my God, never been like this. So, and then having top-notch guys like yourself providing the content, why wouldn't there be 60,000? It makes perfect sense.
Well, and it makes, I'll tell you something, for me, it's kind of inspired me as well, because, now when I'm not making webinars, I'm going and watching other people's webinars.
Sure, I bet.
I'm going and learning things that, it's like, boy, I wish I had time to sit down and take that training or whatever. Now I can go back and do it.
You want to name check anybody?
What's that?
You want to name check anybody that you've been watching that's a need?
I love the Yell Acoustics webinars.
Yeah, we were just talking about.
I've been watching ones on networking and Dante. I've gotten a lot better with my knowledge base on that. I was a little lacking on that just because I didn't use it all that often hands-on. But now it's like I feel way more well-versed in that, So
Yeah.
just there's tons of stuff like that.
That's fantastic.
Pensado's one. I heard you mention in Pensado.
Oh, yeah, man. Prolific, that guy. Woof. Amazing. And
Bobby Ozinski is another good one if you want to check into him too. He does some really good stuff on studio work. So.
Right on, man. Yeah, I love any little bits like that. A few of our viewers have reached out the same way and given some really good tips and resources. So I appreciate it.
There's good ones out there, but I'll also say this, and not to put the wet blanket on it, but you have to be a little bit careful too, because
The Wild
It's
West.
an old adage. Just because you know it, don't mean you can teach it.
Oh, we learned
and-
that the hard way with the Gear Sluts forums and those things. Not to put them down in any way, but I feel like,
Yeah.
not to have too much of an opinion on it, but everybody's a pro at and nowadays. It's really hard to get into some conversations. So to kind of cut
especially
through
now.
Yeah.
Especially now where everybody's got the time, hey, I can teach webinars and, I can teach that subject.
Yeah.
I mean, I've kind of stumbled in on a couple of them where you just go, are you sure about what you're saying right there?
You're not wrong.
Yeah, they must love it when Bob Scovill busts them.
Well, I don't bust them. I haven't kind of called them out online, but I'm just watching, sitting back going, well, sure there, champ.
Always good, always good. So can you, basically, do you have an ongoing relationship with Avid? Is it
Ongoing relationship?
Yeah, like, are you an employee of Avid?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I thought.
And I try not to hide that. I'm surprised how many people don't know it yet. But I went to work for them officially in late in 2005, late 2005, early 2006, and have worked for them ever since full time. That's a full time job for me. So
Great
but I'm a
job,
remote-
great gig if you can get it, man. Wonderful.
Oh, dude. I mean, I'm kissing the ground right now that I have that job. But again, I mean, it's a race against time, how long I'll have it in this pandemic shutdown. But, I mean, it's been just such a blessing to be there and be able to be involved in that product line, for one, which I'm really, really proud of. I mean, I never in my wildest dream would have thought I could have had that kind of impact on that kind of product line. But to do that and then have the company actually encourage me to go out and do work.
Yeah, pretty
Like,
sweet.
because I'm a remote employee, is like, well, and you look at it right now, does it matter whether you see me here or see me from the back lounge of a bus or see me from a production office? As long as I'm getting my work done, who cares? It was almost like
Yeah.
it was a model for what is to come here in big business, because, man, I'm telling you right now, the big business model in the world, not just this country, is going to change going forward.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's no way around that.
Corporate employee structure is going to change big time.
Well, there's a
And, there's some fallout from it coming that I'm wondering if people are actually going to see. I'll give you two examples.
all right.
I saw the other day where United Airlines is thinking about disbanding its business class travel
What?
because there will be no business travelers. Of
Everybody's
note.
doing everything over the air.
And that is a significant revenue stream for an airline.
That's
is
true.
business travel, business
Interesting.
class travel. The second one is the decline in corporate real estate in urban centers. If nobody's going to the office, they're not going to keep those buildings.
They don't need the brick and mortar, you're saying?
Well, they'll reduce it. They'll go to much, much smaller places.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that's going to happen. I mean, I'm seeing it happen at Avid, where people are kind of being defined as essential workplace workers. And it's like, if it's essential for you to be in the workplace, we will continue to have you there. If you can do your work from home, we're going to suggest that you do that.
We're seeing
what's gonna
it
end up
crazy
happening-
in the Bay Area, at least, just being such in a tech zone.
A bunch of those jobs, Facebook and some Google and
all of them are at
Apple,
their house.
where if they could. We just had Sebastian Poe from Diablo Laboratories, Dolby Laboratories, excuse me, and he said that he's been working at more than ever all from home, and that some places have went as far as saying you can just do your job from now on from home, regardless of what happens with the COVID.
Think about what that's going to do to tax revenues.
Yeah, it's a really
for a
good
city.
point. Yeah, and
Property tax revenue.
little delis near these work areas. All that trickle down is
I mean, the
incredible.
the trickle down fallout from that is going to be spectacular.
That's right. I think we're also seeing the disintegration of malls. That model, that business model, doesn't seem to hold up anymore.
It was struggling before the pandemic.
It certainly was. That's absolutely true. Now, listen, we're getting off the topic. I want to talk to you about Young Man. I got a couple ways to go here, but I got a little ahead. I'm always interested in the origin story. Again, you've been doing this for 40 years. You're one of the most sought after guys. I know just back in the days when I used to push faders and turn knobs, I was trying to figure out how the hell you did it so I could simulate it. Never pulled it off, but never got there. But you know, the dream was strong. I tried.
Right.
But what got you into the business? What was I know you love music. We share that in common. What got you into the business?
Well, I mean, kind of the Reader's Digest version of it is this. I mean, I have been into music since I was a very young kid. I mean, I'll give you some little blips on the timeline here. I remember being about 3, maybe 4 years old, and when the Beatles came to the United States. And my mother and father both worked, so they had me with a babysitter when I was young, when I was that age. And the babysitter had a teenage son at that point. So I experienced the Beatles arriving in America through him.
Wow.
And I have, I was very young, but I have kind of two memories. I have a memory of a record player with 45s on it and a pair of Beatle boots sitting right next to it. And those were his Beatle boots. And I used to sneak in and try to put them on. I mean, there was this little 4-year-old kid walking around with size 11 Beatle boots on, you know. So I kind of had the influence there all along. And both my parents and their parents were huge country music fans. So in my house, there was always country music on.
Wonderful.
Always. And you didn't change the channel. If you reached up to change the channel, you were going to get smacked. You know? So I always had music there. And it pushed me into wanting to be a musician. But by the time I was, 9, 10, 11, we were trying to put together our own bands, and we wanted to be the next Jimi Hendrix Experience, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But at that point, I was living in St. Louis, and I had just started high school. I think I was 13 when I started high school, and my parents were pretty liberal. They would let me go to concerts even at that point, and I was I was old for my age when I was a kid, and even though I was a freshman, because I think it was because I played sports and played baseball and things like that. I hung out with the seniors, like the juniors and seniors. I was on varsity baseball, I was on varsity wrestling, and I hung out with the older crowd. So I got to go to concerts with them. And that once that started happening, I certainly at that age, I still didn't know what a PA system was. I mean, who knew? I didn't know any of that kind of stuff. And in 1974, who knew about getting any info? We're only 5 years removed from Woodstock, for heaven's sake,
That's right.
So who knew about it? But as luck would have it, total chance would have it, I went to see, this was probably 1974. Yeah, we've been 74 at the Ambassador Theater in St. Louis. I went to see Supertramp, and they were there on Crime of the Century tour. Mm-hmm. And I had an epiphany moment in the audience. We had floor seats in this theater, and I'm standing there listening to this and just thinking, what's happening right now? This is not just a band up on stage playing. This sounds like I'm listening to the frickin' record on Stun out here. It was just, my brain was just trying to figure out what is going on here,
Exactly.
It sounded so unlike any other concerts I had been to at that point. So as luck would have it, I was walking down the aisle heading out and walked right past the mix position. And kind of stopped me in my tracks, and I kind of looked at it, and I didn't say anything, but the guy who was mixing the show looked at me and he goes, "You want to come up and have a look around?" And that was Russell Pope.
Oh, shit. Wow.
And so, and luckily I was smart enough and not too shy to say, I said, "Hell yeah, tell me about this. What is this?" And I was hooked from that moment that I didn't want to be a musician anymore. I want to be a sound engineer.
Wow.
And the coolest part of this story is this, and I have some people that can back up this story for me. So fast forward now, 35 years, easily 35 years, if not more, and I was on a radio station or an internet radio show called Road Crew Radio, and they asked me the same question, and I told this story. Well, unbeknownst to me, a friend of mine who I worked with on Laurie Anderson, he used to work with Billy Joel, a bunch of people. He lives in Finland now. And he was listening to the broadcast and heard that story. I had never told it to him before, but he heard the story. Mm-hmm. He goes, by the time we finished, I got done, went checked my Facebook, and there's a message from him on Facebook goes, "I live right down the street from Russell. I'm going to go tell him this story."
Wow.
So he
Small
goes and
world.
tells Russell this story, and Russell says, "Yeah, I remember it." I'm like, "No way he fucking remembers this. There's
That's
no way."
crazy.
It's 35 years ago, one chance meeting of a gig.
That's
We
absolutely
get connected on Facebook. He connects me and Russell via Facebook, and he recounts the story to me and remembers it like it was yesterday.
That's crazy.
I was just completely floored by it. I was completely freaked out by it.
Well, you
And he didn't put it together. I don't certainly at the time, but he remembered that story, and then he I think dug in. This was really pretty shortly before he passed away, but I think he dug in a little bit on my career and kind of saw what was going on, and I think he had kind of that moment of,
that must
okay,
have made
see?
him a little proud, like he had something to do with it. Yeah, that's important shit. That's good
but
stuff. He was a
the
legend.
thing it put into me was from that moment on. I swear it put this into me. There were a couple other things that helped do it as well. But if anybody ever came to the front of House Riser and looked inquisitive, they were coming up on that riser.
That's nice.
I was never shy about sharing it with anybody because I know what kind of impact it could have on somebody's life.
You're absolutely right, and you know that not everybody does that, and so that's kind of
That's
a
right.
nice thing to know about you. We're sitting here in front of a bunch of Anya, EAW Anya adaptive technology
Yes, you are.
stuff, and frankly, I think the last time it was used really well was you were driving it. You were
I
driving.
would rather be sitting in front of that Anya right now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would rather be doing that.
That is, I know it's your baby. You had this thing hot rodded like crazy when we got it. We got it from you from Tom Petty. Tell us some stories about that. First of all, what made you like this rig so much? What was its special sauce that you?
It was a couple of things. Bernie was encouraging me to come and audition it. They had it set up at a soundstage. I think they probably had probably 7 or 8 flown aside.
We're talking about
it
Bernie
sounds-
Broderick.
Yeah, Bernie Broderick.
Okay.
Asked me to come in and audition it. He said, "You can bring your own console, bring your own tracks, come in and check this out." And he knew me well enough at that point. We had a lot of history, with L acoustics, et cetera. And he kind of knew my mindset and knew what I was all about. So he said, "You got to come in and get your ears on this and tell me what you think." So I came in, brought tracks, came right from, a Petty tour and brought that console, that show file, and those tracks in to hear it. So I had a really good reference to come off of. We had just come off of a big K1 tour with it. And I think I freaked him out a little bit because I spent about the first, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, just listening to Pink Noise and analyzing it with Smart. I was doing polars. I had some tape out. We were doing polars behind the PA because one of the big things on that Petty tour was you had to have really minimal bleed onto the stage. If you did have bleed onto the stage, it had to sound good, especially to do with subwoofers, anything like that. It just was not allowed to happen on stage. And if it was leaking up there, you were going to hear about it. So I spent a ton of time just analyzing it and was immediately drawn to the pattern control on the PA. That was mind-blowing to me.
Yes.
And how directive we could be with it, how we could create actual start and stop coverage with it. And, I won't go too deep into this, but, I was doing LCR. I had been doing LCR for a long time. And that played dramatically into that concept of improving that concept dramatically in the arena. So, those were a couple of things. And then on top of it, just once I got to the point where I was running up audio, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, for starters, the headroom in it
It's insane.
was mind-blowing.
Yes.
Mind-blowing. I mean, I couldn't get my head around it for a little bit of time there.
It's hard to explain this system to the average line and rave enthusiast. And
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't
12
until you go.
high-end compression drivers really just breaks some people's brains per box. It's just too much.
It is a animal all of its own. It's a special creature, and it has special abilities. But it takes the right driver. It really does.
I remember when we hit the first show with it, because I was still using my show file from K1, I don't want this to sound like I'm bashing L Acoustics. This is not.
L
doing that.
Acoustic make a fine product.
I love that PA. Don't get me wrong.
That's
I love
right.
that PA, but
Yeah.
I would mix on it in a heartbeat.
You bet.
And want to go back to it in some regards. But, moving my show file out to a similar size room and PA, the thing that struck me immediately was my matrix drives to drive K1 were sitting at about -4. I usually leave about -4 headroom in the actual matrix drive itself.
Mm-hmm.
Fader's sitting at 0, the drive is at -4. And that would drive K1 more than adequately for the room. I tried to turn on the console with that matrix setting there with the PA on, and literally could not get the fader up. I mean, I had to have the drive down at almost -20 to get the same amount of volume
Damn.
out of Anya that I was getting out. It was, I literally caught myself at times thinking, okay, what are we doing wrong here? I mean, what, we got some gain going somewhere that we don't know about? I mean,
Something sneaking
kind of
past.
messed with my brain for a little bit, But then it was like, okay, all right, I'm starting to see this now. And, really the moment that nailed it down for me, and this happened early, I mean, even in the audition, I remember listening to it and thinking, you know what, I might be able to go out with no subs with this PA.
It says it goes down to 30.
Easy.
Yeah.
And with amplitude.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay. So that was one thing. But we were in rehearsals and they were still booking parts of the tour. And we had booked out 6 months, 8 months, whatever it was. And it was all arenas until about a week before we left for the tour. And they decided to throw in Fenway Park
Whoa.
into that itinerary.
Big dog.
And it was like, now hang on a second, we're going to, and I was still using kind of the old math in my head. I was like, well, hang on, we're going to have a bigger PA there. We got to get some more Anya. There was no more Anya.
No.
There was no more. We were playing in Boston and I couldn't get any more Anya.
Wow.
You're going to have to use what you have. And I remember thinking, okay, how's that going to work? How is that going to work? But when we got to that first gig and I had that kind of headroom show up, I was like, okay, maybe. We might pull it off. Sure enough, we get to Fenway. We're flying the same arena system that we use inside a hockey arena, but we're reconfigured into 2 columns now, not 3. And I had, really nervous moment. I had a very, very nervous moment. I'm sitting about 180 feet away from that PA system in Fenway Park, getting ready to push up virtual soundcheck tracks, getting ready to push up the drum kit, and I'm just thinking, okay, well, we're going to find out whether this is going to work right now. And sure enough, by the time that fader hit 0, I was like, we are going to be just fine here.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't believe it. Now we used every inch of it.
I bet.
I need you to believe we didn't.
How tall were your columns? What, like 18?
There is no PA system on the planet that could have pulled that off, other than Anya.
The thing is, it is really, I can't say this enough. It's a very special rig, and it can do things in tricky spots, like you mentioned with the mitigation and getting it just right. It's great at Red Rocks, tough room, tough venue
man,
to
we
make.
slayed Red Rocks with that PA.
Yeah, right. I mean, to me, it's the perfect rig for Red Rocks.
It is.
With the challenges that Red Rocks has. It's
honestly there and the Hollywood Bowl.
as
Sorry,
the bowl.
Acoustics, but
It
would be
keep
incredible.
spanking out like
Right? Yeah, Hollywood Bowl too, man.
Be nice. I'm
Jeez.
hoping to have them as a sponsor one day. Be nice, Robert. Jesus.
Well, I mean, not for nothing. When we played the Hollywood Bowl for the 3 nights at the end of the tour, in the months leading up to that, I was trying to get Anya installed there. I was, we looked into how much it would cost to take the other PA down and put up Anya and do that venue with it. And it just became cost prohibitive at some point.
It is.
And in all fairness to the Hollywood Bowl,
Yeah.
if the rest of the industry saw them take down that PA once and put in another PA, they would have been taking it down once a month.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So in the end, I totally had to give in on it, and I had to do it with a straight face to their manager, because he was like, "Do we really need to do this?" And and he was smart enough to realize, well, that PA that's in there worked for us for the previous tour. Are you sure it can't work for us for 3 nights? I was like, yeah, we'll make.
It seems like a fair question to me.
Yeah, it was a fair question.
Let me ask you about.
But Tom was one of those guys. I mean, if I came to him and said, "Dude, we need to put Anya in that place. We'll kill it." He would have wrote the check. He would have just said, "Hey, it's one of my favorite Tom Petty sayings ever. When something like that's going on, if it goes badly, his saying is, 'Hey, is someone trying to save me money again?
Was he not? Was it? Listen, I run the roadie page. You know this.
Yeah.
Tom Petty was probably one of the most considerate to roadies. He's got some famous quotes about, I just come out and play the music. They put on the show. He was one of the nicer men in this game, and
He was totally that times 100.
yeah,
And,
you had 23 years
The funny
with him.
thing about Tom, and I used to always warn crew guys about this, is that, he's a really understated guy. I mean, he's not at the venue very often, other than showtime. You don't hear from him much. He knows what every single person on that tour does.
Knows
their
about your name, the whole bit.
Knows everything about him.
Yeah, I know.
And could walk up to you and go, "Hey, how's it going today? How's the rigging happening? Are we okay?" I mean, he could do that. He would never do it, but he could. He would have the capability of doing that.
It was very.
I'll tell you something, man. I'll tell you something, Vince. I have been really, really fortunate in my life because I've worked for 3 organizations. These are the cream of it. 3 organizations that were unbelievable to their crews.
Def Leppard's got to be one of them.
Absolutely. I mean, they were unbelievable to their crews.
You were early days Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like they were putting some huge shows on. You must have.
Oh my God. Oh, dude, those shows were.
They were murdering it. I mean, right? Jeez Louise, Hysteria. Was that you?
Hysteria,
Paranoid?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
funniest thing about Hysteria, I've told this story before. People don't realize it. That tour was a failure out of the gate.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were
Most
both
people,
shocked.
most people don't have that memory
That's
of
not
it.
my memory of it.
How so?
Because we left, I want to say it was in August of, I want to say 86 maybe. And we toured through, I want to say end of February, maybe early March, to very small, mediocre crowds. I mean, it just was not going. And we had the end of tour party in Denver.
No kidding.
And it was the only two-nighter that we did on the entire tour up to that point. And we were going home. I mean, well, we went home. We shot video at Denver for 2 nights, and they thought, well, maybe we'll release that as some sort of video or whatever, which they ended up doing. But the tour was over. But one of the first videos they released out of that Denver shoot was Pour Some Sugar on Me.
Man, MTV
That
turned
hit
it around.
MTV.
Yeah.
And about 3 weeks later, we got the call saying, we're going back out. It's blowing up.
Amazing.
Now, on that first leg of the tour, first little bit of the tour, the thing that always puts it in context for me is I remember us playing the Omni in Atlanta to barely half house.
Whoa.
Barely half house.
That is hard to imagine Def Leppard at the Omni.
And then it was probably 6 months, no, it was probably 8 months later, 9 months later, 3 nights at the Omni.
Wow. Full. Sold out. Yeah.
Oh, crushing it. Absolutely crushing it.
Amazing.
And I mean, we were out, by the time it was all said and done, we were out 18 months straight.
You don't see that much anymore. Jordan
No.
and I were out with Huey right before sports took off, early days, and so we went from 500-600 seaters to 6,000, 10,000 mid-tour, and you just don't see that so much anymore. It's
Yeah.
the era of the single is kind of not with us. There's so many changes from the early days.
Well, and that whole thing highlights how powerful MTV was at that point in
It
history.
was a real thing. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Without MTV, Def Leppard doesn't exist, folks.
I think you've got a lot. Yeah, I don't think Aerosmith would have had their second coming. There was a lot of examples there that's really true. Yeah,
That's the nicest statement about Viacom I've heard in a while.
Yeah, nobody's saying anything nice about Viacom. And don't get me started, all right? They didn't offer me enough money. I offered them the show, and they said like $7 the hard way.
I
And
know.
it's like, that's just rude.
You got
The hard
stuck
way.
with me, clearly. You can get the
But
funding.
the interesting thing about the MTV thing there is that they ended up with all that power and influence, and it's that old saying, right? Corruption corrupts absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And it was true. They got so kind of, dare I say, full of themselves that they started to want to dictate how the music industry was going to go. They started, they became like the worst record label you could ever imagine, where it was like everything had a formula to it all of a sudden.
That's a good way to put it. That's a very good way to put it. Yeah, they kicked themselves in the head on this one, and then they ceded the territory completely and do no music programming at all. It's an odd situation.
But it kind of became the caricature of itself. It's funny, me and my wife were on a drive here not long ago. Sometimes just to get out of the house, we'll go up and take a big loop drive up through Flagstaff and Sedona. And she likes putting on the hair metal channel, you know.
A little warrant.
Oh, and you know, these really, I mean, I can say it now, these really awful, I mean, they were awful hair bands.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And I would think the only chance that band ever had was on MTV. You had to see them to believe it, because if you had to just listen to this, it was awful, man.
When they'd throw in a few scantily clad girls and the big hair, and it was a rough time. I was a punk rocker for all that, so I got by scot-free, lucked out very much so. You know, a couple of the acts that you did, I just have to know, you know, Brad also worked with Rush for quite some time.
Yeah.
I was wondering, did you mic up Neil's kit? I know that he a lot of times would have his tech do that. Did you ever take part of that?
Well, sure. In the early days, for sure. I mean, you know, I can remember us being up at Westbury Sound in Canada on Presto was the first tour that I did.
I love that one.
And I actually, you know, it was a sound company where we were doing rehearsals, and they had a cool metalworking shop and a woodworking shop. And I actually went into their metalworking shop and kind of custom built all of his drum mic clamps for the kit.
That's cool.
And put them together. So that was kind of a cool thing to do with Neil. It was because he was really into that, obviously, of kind of tricking out the kit and making it custom. So yeah, no, I had a lot of influence on that for sure. And if I was going to be mixing it, for sure, I wanted to have all the influence on the mic placements and on the mic
choices.
choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll say this about Neil. There's not too many drummers I can say this about. That guy played the best balance of a kit of anyone I've ever heard, bar none. You could put one freaking microphone up there, and it would have sounded like Neil Peart.
That's
It
amazing.
was amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
he was the professor. You know,
Oh, my
that's what
goodness.
we all called him, the professor. He was
Sure.
He's definitely one of a kind in music history and the ability and the way he carried himself. That was such a tremendous loss when he passed.
Oh,
that was just weird. I don't know why. I guess I forget I'm old, but yeah, that was sad. So tremendous loss.
You know, he had so much influence on me in so many ways. You know, and it was really kind of understated. I mean, he wasn't a guy who talked a lot of talk. You know, I mean, if you had conversations with him, you know, it was like, I don't mean to over dramatize it.
Well, it's kind of like going to the Oracle.
But it was kind of like words from the burning bush.
That's
you know?
right, exactly.
And you know, I just remember things that he's said to me throughout those years that were so poignant, especially now. You know,
I bet.
like I remember, you know, I won my first TEC award when I was working for Rush, and we were up in Calgary when I got the call that I had won it, because I didn't get a chance to go to the award show, and I didn't think I had a chance in hell of winning, so I didn't even go. And I don't know how he found out about it. I didn't tell him, but somebody told him that I'd won it, and he pulled me aside, and he goes, "Okay, you understand what's going to happen now going forward, right?" And I said, "No, what are you talking about?" And he goes, "You're never going to be allowed to have a bad night from this night forward."
I bet you that's
and he
across.
says,
Yeah.
That kind of pressure can come from you, or it can come from the outside. You get to choose. And it stuck with me forever.
You got to admit that is great advice from the world's best drummer. He's not allowed to have a bad night either, so he knew
Right.
exactly, and that was a good.
Yeah, he
that was a good
he was
share.
picking up dust that he knew about. Right
Yes,
there,
sir.
You know.
Yes, sir. And
But for him to just come, you know, kind of track me down and lay that on me, I just remember. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And it changed my outlook.
yeah, he was heavy. You know this. I mean, he wrote most of the lyrics. He read constantly. The guy kept his own counsel. He was a very special guy, very special. And you're lucky that you got to have some moments like that.
You know, the funny thing about it is, you know, I don't know if you guys know about his books and stuff like that, but, you know, he had written Ghost Rider after the death of Selena, his daughter.
Yeah, that was
wife.
rough.
And I didn't read it. I couldn't read it. I couldn't do it.
It was straight from the heart.
It was. And
Yeah.
I just put it down. I had a copy of it from the time it came out, and it's been on my bookshelf. And I pulled it out and read it after he passed away. And it was so comforting to read it, because I could read it with his voice in my head. It was like he was reading it to me.
Wow.
And it was just so impactful. It was just incredible. It was an incredible experience. I don't know if I could read it again. I don't know if I could make it through
It's
it again.
it's a tough book. There's a lot of love there, man, but you can feel the pain and loss too, though.
Well,
And,
yeah, there's
you
a
know,
lot of conflict. And
yeah,
pain.
and he, you know, the motorcycle ride and all that. Yeah, that was a wacky, tough time. But god damn, who else do you know has went from the pole to the pole back and forth multiple times to work it out? It's just he had such a
I
unique
love
approach.
it. I'm telling you, there's part of me. I've said this to my wife. I was like,
Yeah.
get used to that. I got some of that in me.
Uh-oh, the Nomad going to creep back
Yeah.
out? Well, let me ask you.
ready.
I know you've been training a lot. Do you ever? You've toured with some of the hugest bands in the world, doing some of the biggest shows. Do you ever miss doing the live work? I know you kind of in the recent past had done only a few in the last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of backed off of touring, obviously.
Yeah.
I thought, well, this is a good kind of time to take a little sabbatical. And I just started doing one-offs. I was doing award shows and,
Yeah.
you know, big TV events and things like that. But I mean, ironically, the year of the pandemic, I had the entire year booked out. Not necessarily touring, but lots of mixing events, lots of shows, and they all went away.
This was supposed to be by all the analytics of last year. Speaking of this year, how they do every year, you know, this is supposed to be the biggest year for ticket sales, the most asses in seats, and the tours. We were supposed to be very, very busy right now, and
It was going to be a fantastic year
was
for me.
good.
I'll speak.
Yeah.
I can only speak for me. I remember saying to my wife at some point, by the end of January, it's like, honey, I've got the entire year booked out here. I mean, I can't take on any more work this year.
yeah,
And now it's all
goddamn.
gone.
Well,
Now it's all webinars. You know, that's how we do it now. We
well, I
just-
know, but you are keeping yourself incredibly busy. I mean, so hats off to you on that. And you're
Well, that's part of the survival mechanism. That's how you get through things like this.
Yeah.
You know, you can kind of sit and wallow in it, or you can say, let's get after
it's
it.
no good. Yeah, you know, create a routine, spread your knowledge and all the good that you're doing. I got to ask you about the lounge, the Robert Scovill Lounge. Tell me
It's
about
the
that.
back lounge.
The,
I
the
won't name
back
it.
lounge. I
The back
stand
lounge.
corrected. Well, talk to me about it. What is it? What are you doing in there? Is it a boys' club?
Well,
Is
the
it
back
in your man
lounge-
cave? What's going on?
Yeah, we do it. You see where I do it from here. But it really is, it's an open invitation thing to anybody that wants to come in. I've had non-industry people come in there. But really, it's aimed at industry folks, you know, production managers, promoters, lighting, video, sound guys in there, to just get in a room and start to talk about what's going on in the industry right now, what it's going to look like in the future. I've put together a huge spreadsheet that has aggregated all these articles that have to do with it. I have tons of links on there for financial assistance, building links
great.
on there for education, et cetera, that anybody that comes to the back lounge can access if they want to do it. But it's just kind of a support group kind of mentality. You know, we're all going to get on there and just talk through it and try to get through it. So we talk about COVID. We've started I'm going to say really challenging discussion, even though we haven't finished it by any stretch of the imagination. We've just gotten away from it a little bit in the last couple, of diversity in our industry. You know, people of color, LGBTQ, or whatever the acronym is for it, you know, all of those people,
Sure.
they are part of our industry. And, you know, had people come on there and share some pretty incredible stories of kind of getting into this business and some of the things they've had to deal with. Honestly, at times I just was cringing, just thinking, oh, wow, how can this be going on
Yeah.
in our business right now?
Well,
I mean,
especially back in the
You
day,
can't
there
be
was some
liberal
real
in the
antics.
entertainment business. You got no chance of being liberal, man. Come on.
Yeah, we are a relatively accepting bunch. This came up on another show, but there was the days, and I'm sure you remember them. We're old enough to, when we hazed a little bit and we were a little less. It's cultural shifts. You know, we've evolved, and hopefully, as many of our friends in the business, and now the gray-haired guys are hopefully doing this with some grace and teaching the young guys how to act correctly,
Well, you know,
and
and
accepting around most.
It just becomes a little bit of a tap dance when you're talking about it. You know, I remember kind of admitting, or whatever you want, how you want to look at it, in one of the meetings, talking about, look, I lived through the 80s and the early 90s.
Yeah.
One of the most misogynistic decades
Oh man,
in music,
that's right.
you know, and I can tell you, and especially now that I have a daughter, I can just tell you the last thing I would have wanted on tour for one of those settings was a woman. You know, I just thought, and not because they can't do the gig, any of that kind of stuff, but you just like, man, I don't want them to see any of this stuff going on. I mean, you know, it was, that was a touchy time. I mean,
Yeah, we behaved badly. You're saying?
whew,
Yeah, I know. I was there.
I mean, it was frat party on steroids.
It's I actually okay. So yes, we have a little associated guilt, a lot of wisdom that came from learning through experience. The one I find myself stumbling on a little bit is the youngsters. They're never going to get to do that. The corporate nature, they're not going to have that fun part.
No, I mean,
It's gone more or less.
well, I mean, the emergence of AIDS in the late '80s, early '90s put the stomp on it right away.
Well, I
All of
would
a sudden,
say
the lifestyle changed immediately.
Well, I would say going into the early '90s, there was still a little bit of naughty behavior. Let's say there were groupies still around, and
Yeah.
there was and there was still drugs in the mix too.
Oh yeah, the drugs didn't go away. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
but the really locked down corporate nature of some of the bigger shows that we get up to now are really. They're really almost mechanical, militaristic. So they won't experience some of the stuff we came up with, and good for them. They don't seem to be as inclined to experiment too. I've noticed that in the young people nowadays. So,
Well, certainly at a certain level of touring, I think
Vince,
that,
it's
that's
called
absolutely
out of
true
sight,
because
out of mind. Out of sight, out of
he's hiding it, is what he's saying. They're doing it. They're just like behind
Well,
something.
I mean, you'd have to be more discreet.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Oh, no two ways about it, right?
Because of the liability issues. I mean, somebody like a Live Nation promoting the thing, I mean, hey man, there's a lot of money at stake.
That's right. No, you're not wrong. It's just the whole dynamics change, and
Well, the industry's growing up. I mean, it can't stay a cottage industry forever. It's not going to do that.
yeah, it's. I think we're on the business side of show business, but I definitely spent 15 years in the show side. Having fun, and we're lucky to have that. Hopefully, the kids will show them ways that they can have fun as well. But a quick one. When you were with Prince, did you ever have any special challenges with Prince? He was a very complex man, and multi-instrumental singer. Just I could see a lot of work in that show.
You got a couple more hours?
This is not the first time I've been told this about young Prince. Yes, talented guy, incredible guitarist, amazing.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I went right into the lion's mouth there, without a doubt, in the setting that I went in there, because I was when I went out, when I was asked to come out, I was the 13th mixer in 12 weeks.
Replacement A1.
And at that point, he actually decided to keep number 12 kind of in the bullpen in case I didn't work out.
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean, he was literally paying 2 engineers, and he would just call it out during the show. Now put in the other guy.
Man.
Let's hear him mix for a while.
Wow.
I mean, it was that kind of thing. Now, all of that said, I won't go into all the gory details of it, but I had a very rough, I mean, really rough first 4 days. 3 shows in 4 days. Very, very tough. I honestly didn't think I was going to survive it.
Wow.
But we had kind of a breakthrough moment on show 4, where I got to show him something about myself and what I was going to be about out there. And then we got on very famously after that, and had a really good run after that. And I mean, I got to the point where I could go back unannounced to the dressing room and talk to him.
Wow.
Things like that. And he would call me out by name from the stage at sound check, things like that.
He had a playful
which was
side.
really, really rare.
Yeah, he was a perfectionist with a playful side with a hint of temper. But yeah, I'm glad that it must have been amazing.
It worked out. I mean, convenient to say it now, but I'm on record as saying it before he passed away. If he asked me to come back, I would go back and work for him again, absolutely.
That says it all right there.
Yeah, not a problem.
No, that says it all right there. One last thing. Most memorable show or tour?
Ooh.
I know that's a tough one. That's a lot to dig through.
That is a tough one. Most memorable. Well, my most memorable shows, I think what I've carried the most memories from that were just the widest range of memories in a setting was the Petty run at the Fillmore that we did. We did 22 nights at the Fillmore, and we had a different opening act every 2 shows.
Wow.
So that was an incredible run. That was where I got to see a side of Tom and the Heartbreakers that I had always heard about, but I had never seen it up to that point, to that scale. And it was very challenging for me in a really, really good way. And I came out of it smelling like a rose and looking really good. So that was a really special month. I was at the Miyako for a month.
Oh, Jesus.
I had it timed where I could leave my hotel room, and by the time I got up the stairs at the back of the Fillmore and to the mix position, we were about 2 minutes before house lights going out.
It's perfect.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, that's a wonderful memory.
You know, I think another one that I remember, I think back on this show, funny enough, all the time. It's when I was working for Dan Reed Network. It was on my honeymoon tour, meaning I was on tour and on honeymoon at the same time. And we were opening for the Rolling Stones in Europe. And we were going to go play Czechoslovakia. We were going to go play Prague, Czechoslovakia.
What year is this?
This was 90, 91 maybe? 90. Would have been 90. And we were going to be the first, or they were going to be the first band to play behind the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, that's a tricky gig. Yeah.
And we played this, I mean, from far enough away, it just looks like a normal football stadium, you know? But it's not. It's a marching ground.
It's
where they
huge.
Would put troops on demo.
Yeah.
And you could hold it, like between the field and the seating area, it would hold nearly 1 million people.
Yeah, no, this is next level size. It's hard for American audiences to understand these stadiums, these
can't picture it.
venues. They're massive.
It was massive.
Yeah.
So the Rolling Stones at that point had their steel wheels thing, and although over there it was called Urban Jungle. I mean, it was a huge stage setup, enormous. Had it set up in this thing, and there was about maybe 200,000 people there at the show.
Wow.
And I had time to do it because I was with the opening act. I went up to the very top, far end of it, and took a picture of it in the stadium, and it's like this little bitty stage and 200,000 people inside the big stadium, you know, and it's like, it looks like it's really poorly sold, you know, it's just like.
But it's 200,000 people.
Yeah. The thing I remember about this is what I always recall about it. We did our set, and then Rolling Stones came on, and it started raining. I mean,
raining.
Toad Strangler. I mean, it was raining, and nobody left.
No way.
No one left.
Well, they're a little harder.
I just remember this moment where they were singing. Like, the amazing part of it was, it didn't matter what song they were singing. That crowd knew every word to every song.
Oh yeah.
And they went into "Can't Always Get What You Want," and I just remember having that moment, standing there watching this and thinking about how impactful that show must have been on that culture, and just thinking, this is why we do it.
Yeah, that's right.
This is why we do it. This is what live rock and roll, live bands, live touring is all about. We cannot lose this.
We make memories. Yeah. We make memories for people.
We make memories.
That's right. And
that was that. And honestly, that's, we talk about this world now of streaming and all this other kind of stuff. Until they can figure out a way to replicate that shared experience.
Yeah, we'll always have a job.
Yeah, we'll always have a job. I mean, that's got to be there. There's something animalistic about that is right.
It's tribal. It's tribal. Yeah, you're just not wrong. That part of it cannot be replaced, and it's of course the same part that's tripping us up right now because we can't control the space. We've hypothesized. I was going to ask you what you think. You've done this for 40 years. You keep your ears to the ground. You talk to everybody. They talk to you. I was going to ask you what you think the future holds. Now we've hypothesized that. If we do get back out there and do any sizable show, it's going to have to be outside with masks on because covering the space is going to be almost impossible.
I agree.
Yeah, and do you have a time and a date and the exact band, what the lineup's going to be? Can you help me with that? Just for the audience, just give them a little something.
We need the exact answers, please.
He doesn't have the answer.
Who's got the answers?
Robert, I can talk.
But again, being lemonade out of lemons guy, I also think this time is going to, because we're so far away from it, we're so hurting for it now. When it comes back, I think people are going to have an incredible respect for what that actually is. Because I'll say this: I've said this about America for about 10 or 12 years now, maybe longer, 10 or 15 years, and you experience it when you go tour outside of America. Is how spoiled America was with shows. I mean, there's a show going on every night in every city. And, we totally take it for granted. I'm old enough to remember when concerts were still kind of new.
Yeah, they were more of events. They were an event, yeah.
Yeah, and when people would go, there was this ingrained excitement about being at something really, really unique. That has waned away over 30, 40 years. Now it was just a given that this kind of mechanism was going to be in play, and we're always going to have concerts. Well, now we're going to go without them for a long time, and I'm hoping, I'm praying, it's going to build some appreciation into the American audience for what shows actually mean to us.
Yeah. Well,
So I actually think there's a chance we could actually have it come back stronger than it was before. And hopefully, maybe even a little better.
Well, I think, first of all, people are writing and creating right now. There's no two ways about that, just like you're creating content and the kids are taking it in. And also the shows that, the cruise show, the Motley Crue, Def Leppard, the Disturbed tour, all these tours that had to cancel have rescheduled, actually, opposed to canceled. So for the second half of the summer of next year. And then, of course, the shows that we're already going to be. So we're going to be very, very busy if we can get a handle on making people feel safe. That's it. That's the bottom line.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key right there.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but the whole thing is hinging on the promoter.
It's
The
going to
first
be
promoter that can promote a safe show and pull it off will kind of open the floodgates. The first promoter who's willing to take that risk and do it is gonna open the floodgates.
Yeah, it's going to be a
they're
tricky
very
one.
reticent to do it right now.
Yeah, I just read a 30-page report about how to open back up, and it looks tricky. It's got some
best.
hoops. There's some fiery hoops to jump through.
But
Dennis
it's that whole liability thing again.
Yes, of course. That's we're in a litigious world.
And it's going to take some bending on everybody's part. And this
That's
goes
right.
down like a Led Zeppelin whenever I talk about it. But everybody, promoter, artist, crews, everybody are going to have to be flexible on the money going forward.
Yeah.
Because no longer is the promoter going to take all the risk. You're never going to see a promoter.
We've actually already seen some movement
Guarantee
there.
an artist a sum of money for a given number of dates. That day is gone right now. That is going to be a shared risk going forward.
Live
No
Nation
promoter
has
in
already
his
offered
right
up
mind.
a business model that speaks to that. So, and they're running 50% of the show. So,
But the trickle down from that, like if you look at the artists, okay, well, if I can't guarantee that I'm going to make this kind of money, then I can't guarantee this kind of salary to my people. It'll be this kind of circle of compromise.
we're going to have to
here.
share the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
really
you're not
believe
wrong
that's going
about
to happen
that.
going forward.
You're just not wrong about that. And I'll tell you, I'm willing to do my part, but it's just a tough time. Hopefully we'll get through it soon. Hopefully, first of all, thank you for doing all you do with our guys here at Sound Image, continuing to inspire people in our business to keep their education current and keep chopping away at it. And we really appreciate it. I could talk to you forever. I actually had a couple more questions, but we're running long. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Save it for next month. I got nowhere to go.
I'm going to come and find you again, and we'll do this again. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. You take good
Thanks
care
for
of
having
yourself.
me back on. I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Robert Scovill was our first guest, and the technology hadn't been sorted out, so I appreciate you coming back and letting us prove to you we got the concept down a little bit better. So,
No, I like what you got going on here. This is a good vibe.
thank you, my friend. I really appreciate you coming in. You be good. Take care of yourself. Stay healthy.
Thanks.
All
a
right,
lot,
guys.
man.
We'll see you guys. Take care out there. We'll see you.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye. Buddy, I really appreciate you, as usual, being in here. And all the work you've been doing this last week on the set and with the video and the audio, really appreciate it. Of course, we couldn't do it without the Octopus, without Mikey Brown. Thank you, Michael Brown, for
Thank you, brother.
all the things, all the help, all the you just seriously couldn't do it without you. You're the man. I also like to send a shout out to my brother. He's the general manager here at Sound Image Productions. He allows us the space to have our little show and do our thing. And of course, to the CEO of Sound Image, Dave Shadone. Thank you, David. We really appreciate it. We also get some support from the good folks at Large Screen Video, LSV. That's John Rigney and his people. Thank you, Johnny. We use your cameras. We appreciate you very much.
Thanks, John.
And we're having a barbecue here soon. Johnny, you got to come by for it. A little appreciation barbecue. You're going to be in on that, huh, buddy?
Oh yeah.
It's going to be the gang. We're going to come over. We're going to socially
till you
distance.
see the meats.
Well, you got to be far away when you eat your meats, though.
That's okay. I'll
Okay?
throw it to you.
It's got to be safe meat eating. We just can't be like the normal brushing up and, oh, that's a great ribs. You know,
I
we got-
can't see a gut like that and not give you some meats.
All right. Well,
we got you.
we'll work it out. It's going to be good. We'll just stay away from the camera spot, so
All right.
you know, no evidence.
There you go.
I want to thank the good people at slowfiber.com. They supply us with our custom masks and help us with when things rip and tear in our inventory. They're great. If you need anything along those lines, give a shout out to slowfiber.com. Thank you so much. Next week, we are having a special show. We've got our good friend Ray Bertolino coming in of the amazing band Lovers and Strangers. That's an act that Brad Maddox, our guest recently, mixes and produces. And my brother is their manager, great friends over 30 years. It's going to be a hell of a show. We're really looking forward to that. And so we really appreciate you tuning in, coming in. We'll do this again next Thursday, 7 p.m. on YouTube. Please come back and check us out. Until then, have a good evening. Good night.
Have a good one.